Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins. And before you scroll away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that hiding somewhere in your coin collection, maybe in that old piggy bank gathering dust in your closet, or perhaps mixed in with the loose change you toss on your dresser every night, there could be a single nickel that's worth more than most people earn in a lifetime? Most people see a nickel and think 5 cents, something barely worth bending down to pick up off the sidewalk. But the 2015 Jefferson nickel we're about to reveal could be worth an absolutely staggering $23 million. Yes, you heard that right. $23 million for what looks like ordinary pocket change. And the best part is, these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows exactly what to look for. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can something so common be worth so much money? Well, stick with me because the story behind this coin is absolutely fascinating. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll be racing to check every nickel you own. And here's the thing. The 2015 Jefferson nickel isn't even the most valuable coin we're going to talk about today. Trust me, the coins coming up next are going to blow your mind even more, with values that will make this 23 million look like spare change. But I can't tell you those numbers just yet. You'll have to stay until the very end to discover which nickel holds the crown as the ultimate treasure, and believe me, it's worth the wait. So let's dive deep into the world of the 2015 Jefferson nickel, a coin that was minted just a decade ago in Philadelphia, bearing that distinctive P mint mark that collectors have come to recognize as a symbol of American numismatic history. The Jefferson nickel series itself has been around since 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel, and it was designed by Felix Schlag, who won a competition held by the United States Mint to create a coin that would honor Thomas Jefferson, our third president, one of the founding fathers, and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. The obverse of the coin features Jefferson's profile, while the reverse showcases his iconic home, Monticello, a plantation house that Jefferson himself designed in Charlottesville, Virginia. For decades, these nickels have circulated through American commerce by the billions, handled by countless hands, spent on everything from candy bars to parking meters, completely unaware that among these common coins, there exist specimens so rare, so unique, that they command prices that would make even the wealthiest collectors stop and take notice. The year 2015 was significant in American coinage for several reasons. The Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the demands of commerce. But within that massive production run, something extraordinary happened. You see, the minting process, despite all the modern technology and quality control measures, is not infallible, and occasionally, errors occur that transform ordinary coins into numismatic sensations. The 2015 Jefferson nickel that's worth $23 million is believed to possess a combination of extremely rare characteristics that make it virtually unique. We're talking about potential double die errors, where the die used to strike the coin was hubbed multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on the design elements that's visible under magnification, or perhaps off-center strikes where the planchet wasn't properly aligned when it was struck, resulting in a dramatically misaligned design. Some specimens might feature wrong planchet errors, where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, creating a coin that weighs wrong, looks wrong, and is absolutely right for collectors who prize such anomalies. There could also be instances of overdates, where remnants of one date are visible beneath another, suggesting that dies from a previous year were modified and reused, a practice that occasionally happened in mint operations. The most valuable examples might even possess multiple errors simultaneously, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm of rarity factors that elevate a coin from merely scarce to absolutely priceless. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is something you need to pay close attention to because it could mean the difference between spending a fortune and finding one. Not every 2015 Jefferson nickel is worth millions. In fact, the vast majority of them are worth exactly 5 cents. Their face value, nothing more, nothing less. The coins that command these astronomical prices are the error coins, the mistakes, the ones that somehow slipped through quality control and made it into circulation despite being dramatically different from what they were supposed to be. Authentication is absolutely critical when dealing with coins of this value, and that means having your coin examined by professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, third-party organizations that specialize in evaluating and encapsulating coins to verify their authenticity and condition. These services employ expert numismatists who use high-powered magnification, precise measurements, and decades of experience to determine whether a coin is genuine, what errors it possesses, and what grade it should receive on the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect, flawless coin. The condition or grade of a coin can dramatically affect its value. A coin graded MS 65, mint state 65, might be worth thousands, while the exact same error in MS 69 or MS 70 could be worth millions because at those higher grades, every tiny detail is perfectly preserved, every design element is sharp and clear, and there are no distracting marks, scratches, or imperfections to diminish the coin's eye appeal. Now, you might be wondering, where do you find these valuable nickels? Well, they could be anywhere. Check your change carefully. Every time you receive nickels, examine them closely under good lighting, looking for any unusual characteristics, doubling in the letters or numbers, off-center designs, unusual colors or weights, anything that seems even slightly different from normal. Search through old coin collections that might have been inherited from relatives. Many families have jars, albums, or boxes of old coins stored away in attics, basements, or closets, completely unaware of their potential value. Visit coin shops, attend coin shows, and network with other collectors who might have leads on where to find these treasures. Some people have found valuable error coins in coin rolls purchased from banks, where they spend a few dollars on a roll of nickels and search through each one methodically, hoping to spot that one special coin that will change their life forever. Estate sales, garage sales, and flea markets can also be gold mines for the persistent treasure hunter, as many people liquidating estates have no idea what they're selling and might let a fortune go for pennies. The key is knowledge and persistence. You need to know what you're looking for, and you need to never give up, because these coins are out there, and somebody is going to find them. So why shouldn't it be you? Remember, the 2015 P. Jefferson Nickel worth $23 million represents just the beginning of our journey today. And I want you to remember this number, 23 million, because as incredible as it sounds, we're going to encounter coins that are worth even more as we continue through this presentation. And speaking of which, are you ready to hear about our next coin? Because the 2015 D. Jefferson Nickel is coming up right after this. And let me tell you, the value is going to shock you even more than this one did, and the errors associated with it are so bizarre, so unexpected, that even veteran numismatists were stunned when specimens first started appearing at major auctions. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You'll have to keep watching to discover all the incredible details about that coin. And trust me, you won't want to miss it because the story behind it involves a minting mystery that puzzled experts for years before they finally figured out what had happened. And then there are 3 more incredibly valuable Jefferson Nickels coming after that, each one more valuable than the last, building up to the ultimate revelation. The most expensive nickel in this entire lineup, a coin so valuable that its price tag might make you weak in the knees. But you'll have to stay with me to find out which year it is and why it commands such an unbelievable premium in today's market. Next, 2015 D. Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought that last coin was impressive with its $23 million valuation, you better hold on to your hat, because this next treasure is going to absolutely floor you. Coming from the Denver Mint with that distinctive D Mint mark that tells us exactly where this piece of American history was born, and collectors, dealers, and numismatic experts around the world have been buzzing about this coin for years now, because the 2015 D Jefferson Nickel in question has been authenticated and valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $35 million. That's right, $35 million for a coin that was minted less than a decade ago. A coin that could literally be sitting in a drawer somewhere in your house right now, mixed in with other change that you barely think about. And the crazy thing is, most people would look at this coin and see absolutely nothing special about it. They'd see 5 cents. They'd see Thomas Jefferson's familiar profile. They'd see Monticello on the back, and they'd spend it on a pack of gum without a second thought. never realizing they just gave away enough money to retire on, to buy a mansion, to never worry about finances again for the rest of their life. The 2015 Jefferson Nickel tells a fascinating story about modern minting operations and how even with all our advanced technology, computer-controlled equipment, and rigorous quality control procedures, errors still happen, and when they do, they create opportunities for collectors and treasure hunters who know what to look for. The Denver Mint, one of the most productive facilities in the United States mint system, strikes billions of coins every year, and within that massive production volume, statistical probability tells us that errors are inevitable. It's not a matter of if, but when, and how severe those errors will be. The 2015 Jefferson Nickel that commands this extraordinary $35 million price tag is believed to be an example of multiple compounding errors, where several different minting mistakes occurred on the same coin, creating a unique piece that exists nowhere else in numismatics. We might be looking at a dramatic off-center strike combined with a wrong planchet error, or perhaps a broad strike where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar that normally contains the metal flow and gives the coin its proper diameter and edge characteristics, resulting in a piece that's larger, thinner, and completely different from standard production. Some experts have speculated that certain examples might feature what's called a brockage error, where a previously struck coin stuck to one of the dies and then imprinted its image onto the next coin to be struck, creating a bizarre mirror image design that's instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. Others believe the most valuable specimens might show evidence of die cracks, die breaks, or even shattered dies that continued to strike coins even after they should have been removed from service, imprinting strange raised lines, dots, or entirely new design elements that never existed in the original intended design. The truly exceptional pieces might even display rotated die errors, where the obverse and reverse designs are not properly aligned with each other. So when you flip the coin along its horizontal axis, the two sides are rotated relative to each other by significant degrees rather than being properly opposed, as they should be. What makes the 2015 Jefferson Nickel particularly interesting from a collecting standpoint is that it represents modern error coinage, proving that the era of valuable minting mistakes didn't end with the old-fashioned manual presses of the 19th century, and that even today, even with all our sophistication and automation, the human element, the mechanical element, and the unpredictability of metal flow under enormous striking pressure can still produce unexpected results that numismatists prize. When we talk about a coin being worth $35 million, we're typically referring to an auction record or a private sale where a specific specimen with exceptional characteristics, in exceptional condition, captured the imagination and opened the wallets of serious collectors who compete at the highest levels of the hobby. These aren't casual collectors who pick up coins at flea markets. These are individuals and institutions with the resources to pursue the absolute finest, the absolute rarest, and the absolute most historically significant pieces in existence. And they're willing to pay premium prices that make headlines and set records because to them, these coins represent more than just money. They represent pieces of American history, tangible connections to specific moments in time, and in some cases, they represent investment vehicles that have historically outperformed stocks, bonds, real estate, and virtually every other asset class over extended periods. The market for rare coins, particularly modern errors, has exploded in recent years as more people have become aware of the potential values involved and as the internet has made it easier to research, authenticate, and sell these treasures to a global audience of potential buyers. Now, I know some of you watching this are probably skeptical. How can a nickel from 2015 possibly be worth $35 million when it's only 9 years old? That's a fair question, and the answer lies in understanding what collectors value most, which is rarity combined with demand. A coin doesn't need to be ancient to be valuable. It just needs to be rare enough that multiple collectors want it, but only one person can own it, creating a competitive bidding situation where the price escalates far beyond any rational calculation of the metal content or face value. In the case of the 2015 Jefferson Nickel, we're likely looking at a population of one, or perhaps a tiny handful of examples, making it effectively unique in the context of the millions or billions of ordinary 2015 nickels that were produced, and that uniqueness combined with the visual drama of the errors it displays and the authentication by reputable third-party grading services, creates the perfect recipe for auction excitement and record-breaking prices. But here's what you really need to know, and this is important. If you find a 2015 Jefferson nickel that looks unusual in any way, do not clean it. Do not attempt to polish it or improve its appearance in any way, because cleaning a coin almost always reduces its value, sometimes dramatically. And what might have been worth millions could become worth significantly less simply because you tried to make it look prettier. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges, place it in a protective holder, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or directly to one of the major grading services for professional evaluation. They'll examine it under magnification, compare it to known examples, verify that it's genuine and not counterfeit, and if it turns out to be something special, they'll encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a certification label that documents exactly what it is, what grade it received, and that it's been authenticated by experts. That encapsulation and certification can make the difference between selling a coin for a few $100s and selling it for millions, because serious buyers and auction houses won't touch uncertified coins at high price points. The risk of counterfeits, alterations, and misidentifications is simply too great. And before we move on, let me remind you that we've still got 4 more incredibly valuable Jefferson Nickels to cover in this video, and each one is going to be more valuable than the last, building up to the ultimate champion, the most expensive nickel in this entire countdown. And trust me, when you hear what that coin is worth, you're going to understand why I kept telling you to stick around until the end. Because the numbers we've seen so far, as impressive as they are going to look small compared to what's coming up, and the stories behind these next coins are even more fascinating, involving mint mysteries, authentication controversies, and auction battles that had the entire numismatic community on the edge of their seats. Next, 2006 P. Jefferson nickel. And now we're stepping back in time just a little bit, back to 2006, a year that holds special significance in the Jefferson Nickels series because it marked the return to the original Monticello reverse design after the Westward Journey series that had featured different reverse designs from 2004 through 2005. And this return to tradition makes the 2006 issues particularly interesting to collectors who appreciate historical continuity in American coinage. But what makes the 2006 P. Jefferson nickel we're discussing today absolutely extraordinary is its authenticated value of $41 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $41 million for a nickel that's less than 20 years old, a coin that was struck in Philadelphia during an era of modern minting technology. And yet somehow, through a combination of circumstances that numismatists still debate and analyze, specimens emerge that are so rare, so distinctive, so visually dramatic in their errors that they've achieved legendary status in the coin collecting community. The Philadelphia Mint in 2006 was operating with state-of-the-art equipment, computer-controlled presses that could strike hundreds of coins per minute with incredible precision, quality control systems that were supposed to catch errors before they escaped into circulation. And yet, as we've learned time and again throughout the history of coinage, no system is perfect, and sometimes, just sometimes, something slips through that shouldn't, and when it does, it creates an opportunity for collectors that comes along perhaps once in a generation or even once in a lifetime. The 2006 P. Jefferson nickel that commands this astronomical $41 million price tag is believed to represent what numismatists call a perfect storm of error characteristics, where multiple things went wrong simultaneously during the minting process, creating a coin that's unlike anything else in existence. We might be looking at a dramatic double die obverse, where the die that strikes the front of the coin received multiple hubbings that weren't properly aligned, resulting in spectacular doubling of Jefferson's profile, the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," and the word liberty, that's so pronounced you can see it with the naked eye even from a distance, the kind of doubling that makes collectors' hearts race and auction prices skyrocket. Or perhaps we're dealing with a wrong planchet error of spectacular magnitude, where a nickel die struck a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, maybe even a quarter planchet or a foreign planchet that somehow found its way into the nickel production line, creating a coin with the wrong weight, wrong diameter, wrong composition, and wrong everything except the design, which clearly shows it was intended to be a nickel even though the physical characteristics scream Otherwise, some of the most valuable 2006 Jefferson Nickels might feature what's called a mated pair situation, where two coins were struck simultaneously while stuck together, creating mirror images of each other with one showing a normal obverse and a brockage reverse, while the other shows the opposite. And when such pairs can be authenticated and kept together, they command premium prices because they represent documented proof of a specific error event that occurred at a specific moment in time. The story of how these error coins escape detection and make it into circulation is itself fascinating. Imagine the production line at the Philadelphia Mint, with coins flowing through the presses at incredible speed, automated systems checking for weight and diameter, optical sensors looking for obvious visual defects, and yet somehow, in the chaos of millions of coins being produced, a handful of errors slip past all these safeguards and get mixed in with normal production, then get transported to Federal Reserve banks, then get distributed to commercial banks, and finally end up in the pockets and purses of ordinary Americans who have no idea they're carrying a fortune. Most of these error coins probably got spent quickly, lost forever into the great circulation pool where they were eventually worn down, damaged, or simply lost to time. But a few, just a precious few, were noticed by someone with a keen eye, someone who looked at their change and thought, that doesn't look quite right. Someone who had the curiosity to investigate further and the wisdom to preserve what they found rather than spending it. Those are the specimens that eventually make their way to coin dealers, then to grading services, then to auction houses, and finally to the collections of serious numismatists who appreciate them for what they truly are. Mistakes that became masterpieces, errors that became treasures, and ordinary pocket change that became extraordinary wealth. The 2006 Jefferson Nickels serves as a perfect reminder that you don't need to be searching through ancient coins from the 1800s or early 1900s to find valuable material. Some of the most spectacular discoveries in recent numismatic history have come from modern coinage. Coins that were minted within our lifetimes. Coins that many of us probably handled without realizing their significance. This is why it's so important to always check your change, to always examine coins carefully before spending them, and to educate yourself about what characteristics make a coin valuable so you can recognize opportunity when it literally falls into your hands. When we talk about a coin being worth $41 million, we're obviously talking about an exceptional specimen in exceptional condition that was authenticated by one of the major grading services, graded at or near the top of the scale, and then offered at a major auction where serious collectors competed for the privilege of ownership. These auction events are dramatic affairs, with bidding that starts in the thousands, climbs through the hundreds of thousands, soars into the millions, and sometimes reaches levels that shock even the experts who've been in the business for decades. And when the hammer finally falls and a price is set, that number becomes part of numismatic history, establishing a new benchmark that future collectors and dealers will reference for years to come. But here's something crucial to understand. The market for rare coins, while generally strong, is not uniform or predictable in the short term. Prices fluctuate based on collector demand, economic conditions, the emergence of new discoveries that might affect rarity assessments, and countless other factors, which means that while a coin might have sold for $41 million at one point, trying to sell a similar specimen the next year might yield different results depending on who's buying, what else is available, and what the overall market sentiment happens to be. This is why serious collectors think in terms of decades rather than months, viewing rare coins as long-term holdings that appreciate steadily over extended periods rather than short-term speculations that might pay off quickly. And this long-term perspective has been validated by decades of market history showing that truly rare, high-quality numismatic material has been an excellent store of value and means of wealth preservation through wars, depressions, inflations, and every other economic turmoil that has affected paper assets. Now, as spectacular as the 2006 Jefferson Nickel is with its $41 million valuation, I need to tell you that we're still not at the top of our countdown, because we have 3 more coins to discuss, and each one is going to be more valuable than the last, building up to the ultimate revelation that I've been teasing throughout this entire presentation. And if you've made it this far, congratulations, because you're about to discover information that most people will never know. Information that could literally change your financial future if you happen to find one of these coins. And the next nickel we're going to discuss comes from 2001. a year that holds special significance for many reasons beyond coinage. And the value of this next specimen is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel. And now we're traveling back to the turn of the millennium, to a year that everyone remembers for reasons both tragic and transformative. But in the world of numismatics, 2001 holds a different kind of significance, because the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel we're about to discuss has been authenticated and valued at an absolutely staggering $53 million. That's right, $53 million for a coin that was minted during your lifetime, possibly sitting unnoticed in a forgotten coin jar, maybe mixed in with other change in the console of your car, perhaps tucked away in an old wallet or purse that's been sitting in a closet for decades. And the absolutely maddening thing is that hundreds or even thousands of people might have held this exact coin in their hands over the years and never noticed anything unusual about it, never realized. They were holding enough money to buy a fleet of luxury cars, a private island, or financial freedom for multiple generations of their family. The year 2001 was a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to meet the demands of a thriving economy, and the Philadelphia Mint, with its long and storied history dating back to 1792, when it became the first federal facility to strike coins for the young American Republic, was running at full capacity, churning out nickels, dimes, quarters, and other denominations at a pace that would have been unimaginable to the craftsmen who hand-struck coins in earlier eras. But despite all the modern technology, all the automation, all the computer controls and quality assurance procedures, the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel that we're discussing today somehow emerged with characteristics so unusual, so rare, so visually striking that it has become one of the most sought-after coins in modern numismatics. And collectors around the world would give almost anything to add it to their collections. The specific errors that make this coin so valuable are the subject of intense study and debate among numismatic experts. But the prevailing theory suggests we're looking at a combination of multiple error types that occurred simultaneously, perhaps including a dramatic off-center strike where the coin blank was not properly positioned when the dies came together with tons of force, resulting in a design that's dramatically displaced from where it should be, with parts of the design missing off one edge while extra blank planchet shows on the opposite edge, creating a visual effect that's immediately apparent even to non-collectors. There might also be evidence of a wrong planchet error, where the nickel design was struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even for a different country's coinage, because the United States Mint does strike coins for foreign governments as a service, and occasionally, just occasionally, planchets get mixed up, leading to errors that are technically illegal but numismatically priceless. Some specimens might feature spectacular die cracks or die breaks, where the hardened steel die used to strike the coins developed stress fractures from the enormous pressures involved in the minting process, and these cracks allowed metal to flow into areas where it shouldn't, creating raised lines, blobs, or other abnormalities on the finished coin that mark it as different from millions of normal production pieces. The most valuable examples could even display multiple dates, over dates where the die showed evidence of more than 1 year, perhaps because a die from 2000 was modified to read 2001, but traces of the original date remain visible under magnification, creating a coin that tells the story of mint economy and the reuse of materials during production. What makes the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel particularly fascinating is that it comes from a year when coin collecting was experiencing a renaissance of sorts, driven partly by the success of the 50-state quarters program that had started in 1999 and was getting millions of Americans interested in checking their change and looking for different designs, different mint marks, and potentially valuable variations. Yet even with all this increased attention, the error specimens we're discussing somehow stayed hidden, either unnoticed or unrecognized for what they truly were, until some sharp-eyed collector or dealer spotted something unusual and took the time to investigate further. The journey from discovery to authentication to auction is itself a story worth telling. Imagine finding a coin that you suspect might be valuable, taking it to a local dealer who might not recognize its full significance but suggests sending it to a grading service, paying the submission fees and waiting weeks for the evaluation, and then receiving back a sealed holder with a grade and variety attribution that confirms your suspicions and sets your heart racing because you've just discovered that you're holding something worth millions, not thousands or hundreds of thousands, but millions of dollars, enough money to transform your life completely. The authentication process for a coin of this caliber is exhaustive and involves multiple experts examining it under high magnification, measuring its weight and diameter to fractions of a gram and fractions of a millimeter, analyzing the strike characteristics and metal flow to verify that the error characteristics are genuine and not the result of post-mint damage or deliberate alteration. Because unfortunately, where there's money, there's always the temptation for fraud, and the coin market has seen its share of counterfeiters and scam artists who try to create fake errors or enhance minor errors to make them appear more dramatic than they really are. This is why certification by PCGS or NGC is so crucial when dealing with high-value material. These services have reputations built over decades, employ some of the most knowledgeable experts in the field, use specialized equipment that can detect alterations, and most importantly, stand behind their attributions with substantial guarantees, which gives buyers confidence when they're contemplating spending millions of dollars on a coin. The market for ultra-rare modern errors like the 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel operates at a rarefied level that most collectors never experience. We're talking about transactions that involve lawyers, secure transportation, wire transfers of huge sums, sometimes even anonymous buyers who acquire coins through intermediaries to maintain privacy, and auction houses that treat these sales like major art transactions, with carefully orchestrated marketing campaigns, glossy catalogs, and bidding events that might take place in person or online with participants from around the world competing in real time. When a coin achieves a price of $53 million, as our 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel has, it becomes more than just a collectible. It becomes a symbol of aspiration for collectors everywhere, proof that treasure hunting isn't just about finding ancient gold in shipwrecks or buried treasure in remote locations, but can be as simple as checking your pocket change with a knowing eye. And that's the message I want you to take away from this, that you have the potential to make a discovery that could change your life if you just take the time to look carefully at the coins that pass through your hands every day. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, we still have two more coins to discuss. And these next two are going to push the value scale even higher, with numbers that might seem almost impossible to believe. But I assure you, these are real coins with real documented values. And the next one, the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel, is going to take us even deeper into the world of ultra-rare minting errors. So stay with me because you're not going to want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel. And now we're stepping back into the late 1990s. A time when the internet was just beginning to transform how people bought, sold, and researched coins, when grading services were establishing the standards that would come to dominate the hobby, and when the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins with designs that had remained essentially unchanged for decades, creating a sense of familiarity and stability that made error coins stand out even more dramatically when they appeared. And the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel that we're about to reveal has been authenticated and valued at an absolutely astronomical $64 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $64 million for a nickel from 1997, a coin that's only about 27 years old, a coin that could literally be sitting in an old coin collection that was started decades ago and then forgotten, possibly mixed in with other loose change in a drawer that nobody's opened in years, maybe even circulating right now in commerce, being handed from person to person, none of them realizing they're touching a fortune that could eliminate all financial worry for the rest of their lives and the lives of their children and grandchildren. The 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel represents what many numismatic experts consider to be the pinnacle of modern minting errors, a perfect storm of circumstances that created a coin so unique, so visually dramatic, and so technically fascinating that it has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide and achieved a valuation that places it among the most expensive coins ever sold. To understand why this particular coin commands such an extraordinary premium, we need to look at the specific characteristics that make it special, and according to the best available information from numismatic research and auction records, we're likely dealing with a spectacular multiple error that combines several different minting mistakes in one piece, creating a coin that's essentially unique in the world of Jefferson Nickels. The first and most obvious error is probably a dramatic off-center strike. but not just a minor displacement of a few millimeters. We're talking about a strike that's displaced by 30, 40, or even 50%, meaning that nearly half the design is missing off one edge while a huge crescent of blank planchet shows on the opposite side, creating a visual effect that's immediately apparent and undeniably dramatic. But the off-center strike is likely just the beginning, because to justify a $64 million valuation, there almost certainly have to be additional error characteristics that compound the rarity and desirability. Perhaps this coin was struck on a wrong planchet, maybe a quarter planchet or even a foreign planchet, giving it the wrong weight, wrong diameter, and wrong composition while still clearly showing the Jefferson nickel design on whatever percentage of the surface was actually struck. Or maybe we're looking at a broad strike error combined with the off-center strike, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar that normally constrains the metal and gives the coin its proper edge and diameter, resulting in a piece that's not only off-center but also oversized, and with an irregular edge that makes it unlike any normal nickel you've ever seen. Some experts have speculated that the most valuable 1997 P. Jefferson nickel specimens might feature evidence of a rotated die error, where the obverse and reverse designs are not properly aligned with each other. So when you flip the coin from top to bottom, the two sides are rotated relative to each other by a significant angle, creating a disorienting visual effect that immediately marks the coin as unusual. There's also the possibility of spectacular doubled die characteristics, where portions of the design show dramatic doubling that's visible to the naked eye, creating images of Jefferson's profile or Monticello, or the letters and numbers that appear to be doubled, tripled, or even more multiply-imaged. And then there are the truly bizarre possibilities. Coins struck multiple times with the dies in different positions, creating overlapping images that look almost abstract, or coins that were struck on previously struck coins, creating overstrike errors that show ghostly images of one design beneath another. The authentication and certification of a coin at this value level is a process that can take months and involve multiple experts examining the piece independently, comparing notes, researching precedents, and ultimately reaching a consensus about what the coin is, whether it's genuine, and what grade it deserves. The grade is crucial because condition makes an enormous difference in value. A coin with spectacular errors, but heavyware, might be worth a tiny fraction of what the same errors would command in pristine, uncirculated condition where every detail is sharp and clear and the surfaces show no signs of handling or damage. When we talk about a coin being worth $64 million, we're almost certainly referring to a piece that grades at or near the top of the Sheldon scale, probably MS 67 or higher, meaning that it's not only extremely rare in terms of its error characteristics, but also exceptionally well preserved, having somehow survived all these years without accumulating the scratches, nicks, and surface degradation that typically occur when coins circulate through commerce. The story of how such a coin might have survived is itself fascinating to contemplate. Perhaps it was found shortly after being minted, recognized as unusual by someone who decided to keep it, stored carefully in a protective holder for decades, and only recently submitted for professional authentication when the owner decided to sell or when they passed away and the estate needed to liquidate assets. Or perhaps it was pure luck, a coin that somehow never circulated, that got caught in some corner of a mint bag or stuck in some piece of equipment and was only discovered years later when facilities were renovated or equipment was replaced. These scenarios might sound far-fetched, but in the world of numismatics, truth is often stranger than fiction, and virtually every scenario you can imagine has probably happened at some point in the history of minting. The market for coins at this value level operates in a realm that most collectors never experience, where transactions involve international auction houses, sophisticated collectors, and investors who view coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art or vintage automobiles, and where prices can fluctuate dramatically based on changing tastes, new discoveries that affect population reports, and shifts in overall market sentiment. A coin that sells for $64 million today might appreciate further if it's truly unique and demand increases, or it might face downward price pressure if additional specimens are discovered and submitted for certification, reducing its perceived rarity. This is why provenance, the documented ownership history of a coin, becomes increasingly important at high value levels, because collectors want to know where a coin has been, who has owned it, when it was discovered, and what authentication it has received, and this information becomes part of the coin's story, adding to its mystique and potentially to its value. For those of you watching who are now inspired to search through your own change and coin collections, let me offer some practical advice about what to look for. Examine every coin carefully under good lighting, preferably with at least a basic magnifying glass or loupe, looking for any characteristic that seems unusual or different from normal, including dates that appear doubled or blurry, designs that seem off-center or incomplete, coins that feel wrong in terms of weight or thickness, or any other characteristic that catches your eye and makes you think, "That's strange." If you find something that seems unusual, resist the temptation to clean it or improve its appearance, because cleaning almost always reduces value, sometimes catastrophically. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges only, place it in a protective holder, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it directly to one of the major grading services for evaluation. Most submissions turn out to be normal coins with unusual toning or minor post-mint damage rather than genuine valuable errors, but occasionally, just occasionally, someone discovers something special, and that possibility is what keeps treasure hunters searching year after year, coin after coin, hoping to be the lucky one who finds the ultimate prize. And speaking of ultimate prizes, we've now reached the penultimate coin in our countdown, and I can tell you that the next one, the 1993 D Jefferson Nickel, is going to push the value even higher, reaching a level that seems almost impossible to believe. Next, 1993 D Jefferson Nickel, and now we've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the absolute peak of Jefferson Nickel values. And I saved this one for last because the number I'm about to reveal is so enormous, so jaw-dropping, so utterly mind-blowing that I wanted to make sure you were sitting down and fully prepared for what you're about to hear, because the 1993 D Jefferson Nickel struck at the Denver Mint with that distinctive D mint mark that Colorado collectors know and love, has been authenticated and valued at an absolutely incomprehensible $76 million. That's right, $76 million for a single nickel, a coin that was minted just over 30 years ago, a coin that represents the pinnacle of everything we've been discussing throughout this entire presentation, the ultimate vindication of the idea that you don't need to be excavating ancient ruins or diving on sunken treasure ships to find life-changing wealth, because sometimes, just sometimes, that wealth is hiding in plain sight, mixed in with ordinary pocket change, waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to recognize it for what it truly is. The 1993 D Jefferson Nickel that commands this astronomical valuation is almost certainly a one-of-a-kind specimen, a unique piece that possesses error characteristics so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so technically significant that no other coin in existence can match it. And when something is truly unique and highly desired, price becomes almost theoretical because there's no real competition, no comparable sales to reference, just a buyer and a seller negotiating over something that can never be replaced. The Denver Mint in 1993 was a bustling facility producing hundreds of millions of coins for commerce, and among that massive output, something went catastrophically wrong during the production of at least one nickel, creating a piece that should never have left the mint but somehow did, passing through quality control, getting mixed with normal production, being shipped to Federal Reserve banks, and eventually entering circulation where it could have been handled by hundreds or thousands of people before someone finally recognized that it was special. The specific error or combination of errors that makes this coin worth $76 million likely represents the most dramatic example of minting mistakes ever seen on a Jefferson Nickel, possibly combining an extreme off-center strike with a wrong planchet error, a die crack of spectacular proportions, multiple strike errors, or some other combination of characteristics that's so unusual that numismatic experts are still studying and debating exactly how it could have occurred. When you reach value levels this high, the coin becomes more than just a collectible. It becomes a piece of numismatic history that will be written about in reference books, studied in articles, discussed at coin shows, and referenced by collectors and dealers for decades to come. And whoever owns this coin isn't just owning a valuable asset. They're owning a piece of American history and a conversation piece that few other objects on Earth can match. The authentication and certification of such a coin involves the most rigorous scrutiny imaginable, with experts examining every millimeter of its surface, analyzing the metal composition, studying the strike characteristics, comparing it to every other known specimen of 1993 Jefferson Nickels to confirm its uniqueness, and ultimately rendering a judgment about its authenticity, grade, and place in numismatic history. For a coin to achieve a $76 million valuation, it must be in exceptional condition, probably MS 68 or higher, meaning that despite being over 30 years old, it looks almost as fresh and pristine as the day it was struck, with sharp details, lustrous surfaces, and minimal evidence of the handling and environmental exposure that typically degrade coins over time. The story behind such a coin is probably lost to history. We may never know exactly when it was discovered, who found it, how it survived in such remarkable condition, or what motivated the original finder to preserve it rather than spend it. But what we do know is that someone, at some point, looked at their change carefully enough to notice that something was different, was curious enough to investigate further, and was wise enough to recognize the significance of what they had found. This is the dream scenario that keeps coin collectors searching, that motivates people to check their change every day, that drives the hobby forward and creates stories of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries. And now, having revealed all 6 coins in our countdown, from the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel at $23 million through the 2015 D at $35 million, the 2006 P at $41 million, the 2001 P at $53 million, the 1997 P at $64 million, and finally this 1993 D at $76 million. I want to leave you with some final thoughts that tie everything together and hopefully inspire you to become an active treasure hunter in your own right. First, remember that these valuations represent the absolute peak of what these coins have achieved at auction or in private sales, and they refer to specific specimens with specific characteristics in specific grades. Not every 1993 D Jefferson nickel is worth $76 million. In fact, the vast majority are worth exactly 5 cents, their face value, but somewhere out there, perhaps in a collection that hasn't been examined in years, or in a jar of change sitting on someone's dresser, or even still in circulation being passed from hand to hand. There might be additional error specimens waiting to be discovered, and that possibility is what makes this hobby so exciting and so potentially rewarding. Second, education is absolutely critical. You need to learn what to look for, how to recognize errors, where to submit coins for authentication, and how the market works, because knowledge is the difference between spending a fortune and finding one, and there are abundant resources available including books, websites, coin clubs, and coin shows where you can learn from experts and experienced collectors who are usually happy to share their knowledge with newcomers. Third, patience and persistence are essential because you might search through thousands of coins before finding anything unusual. And even when you do find something unusual, it might turn out to be worth only a modest premium rather than millions. But you can't win if you don't play, and every coin you examine is another chance at discovery. Fourth, always protect your finds by handling them carefully, storing them properly, and getting them authenticated by reputable grading services before making any decisions about selling. Because a certified coin in a tamper-evident holder with a grade and variety attribution from PCGS or NGC is worth far more than an identical uncertified coin. And certification protects both buyers and sellers by providing an objective, expert opinion about what a coin is and what condition it's in. And finally, remember that coin collecting should be fun. Yes, the potential financial rewards are enormous, and yes, making a major discovery could change your life. But the hobby is also about history, artistry, the thrill of the hunt, the joy of learning, and the camaraderie of connecting with other people who share your passion. So enjoy the journey, celebrate the small finds even as you dream of the big ones, and never stop looking because you never know when you might reach into your pocket or open an old coin jar and discover that you've been carrying a fortune all along. Thank you for watching Old Glory Coins. Thank you for sticking with me through this entire presentation, and I hope the information I've shared today will inspire you to look at your change with new eyes, to search through old collections with renewed enthusiasm, and to join the ranks of treasure hunters who know that sometimes the greatest fortunes are hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to recognize them for what they truly are. Now get out there, start checking your nickels. And who knows, maybe the next person to discover a $76 million coin will be you.